What is going on, everyone? My name's Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video, and today it's the Game Week 3 preview. A little bit later than usual. I put out the wildcard draft video earlier in the week, so this one comes out on Friday, but hopefully it'll still be useful before the deadline. For anyone that wants to check into a live stream, I'm also doing a deadline stream tonight at 6 o'clock. So if you're watching this video on Friday and you're around 6 o'clock UK time, you can watch the stream later on as well. A couple of points I'll make that I've not put in the video. Lucas Dean is fully fit. Or he's available, is what Marco Silva said. So if you've got him in your team, I'm not really worried about him. I've got him myself. Potentially, even if you're wild carding, you could put him in. And Pookie, I'm not talking about him in the video, but yes, he does look good. Will he continue with the goal scoring form? Probably not going to score 4 goals every 2 weeks, but the stats are looking pretty good for the first 2 weeks. And if it doesn't work out, there's plenty of other 6.5 million strikers. So with that out of the way, let's jump into the main topics I'm going to be talking about. So first up, we'll talk about Liverpool defence, and I've got a feeling we're going to be talking about Liverpool defence for the next kind of 2 or 3 weeks. Before the majority of us, myself included, have finally jumped off of it, having a double up, or even potentially having none at all. I've seen quite a few wild cards that have gone bigger up top without Liverpool defenders, with a view to maybe get them back in later on in the season when maybe Alisson's back, or they're looking more assured. So is the double up done? This is what I would say. I've got the double up and I'm keeping it this week. Now, half of that is because I had other things that I wanted to do. I could have used the Liverpool defender as a make weight to make my moves instead of getting rid of Perez, but I decided to stick with them. If they can get rid of or get a clean sheet against Arsenal at home, then suddenly it looks really good, because the next 2 fixtures I think are Burnley away and Newcastle at home, so you expect 1 or 2 clean sheets there as well. It's going to be tough to get a clean sheet against Arsenal, and for me, if I was wildcarding, there's absolutely no way I would have double Liverpool defence, I think, at this point, without their first choice goalkeeper, and generally looking just a little bit shakier at the back for whatever reason that might be. But again, as we keep saying this early on in the season, it's only a 2-week game week sample size. And also, you know, I think Norwich, we didn't necessarily expect to be as attacking as they were. And to be fair, Southampton did really well as well. They could have scored more. So maybe it is a good time to get off. I think double up, is it done? Probably. For those of us that started the season and haven't wildcarded, then we're probably going to keep for now. But I think if they don't get a clean sheet against Arsenal, it becomes very tricky to even keep them for the next 2 fixtures, even though they are better. And right now, I think you can still own one. I'm not sure I completely jump off at all. We saw how well they did last season. But on that, you have to remember, you don't need to keep players for a whole season. If you get rid of a Liverpool defender now, you get rid of both of them on your wild card, it doesn't mean that you can never bring them back in. I think a lot of people, in the back of their mind, that's almost in their head that they have to keep them for the season. They got 200 points last season, they'll do that again this season. They probably won't get 200 points, but they might still be valued at 6.5 million for Van Dijk and 7 million for Trent and Robertson. It doesn't mean you have to have them in your team right now. So if you get rid of them on wildcard, you can bring them back later on when they've got a better run of fixtures, because after Arsenal, Burnley and Newcastle, the fixtures are quite tough. They play quite a few of the top 6 sides, and if they can't shore up that defence, I'm not really seeing where the clean sheets are coming from. And you can talk about attacking returns all you like, but at the end of the day, defenders are in there for clean sheets, and if they get attacking returns, that is a massive bonus. Like Lucas Dean, for example, if he wasn't getting clean sheets with Everton, I probably wouldn't have him in my team. Attacking returns are great, but they don't happen that often for a defender. I know Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold obviously got lots last season, but I'd be pretty surprised if they get close to that number again. But we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, it's 2 weeks. I'm not jumping off just yet. But I can definitely see why people are. Man United is a topic that I do like to talk about whenever I can on this channel. And most of the time, especially on streams and stuff, I'm just joking around about how good an option they are. And also, if I think that I'm getting a player in just because I'm being biased, I will say that. Last year, Sanchez in Game Week 1, that's because I wanted a Man United player in. I wasn't really trying to convince anyone else to get him. This year, it's a little bit different. They suddenly look like they've got a lot of options. I've seen people tripling up on wildcard. Obviously, the prices are good, which makes a big difference. Sanchez was 10.5 last year, whereas Martial started at 7.5 and Rashford started at 8.5. And obviously the defenders, none of them are worth 5.5 or more, or they weren't until the price rose when Wan-Bissaka's gone up. So a lot of people looking at them, so I wanted to talk about them. Best defender, I'll be honest, when you look at the underlying statistics for the first 2 games in terms of individual potential, it doesn't make for fantastic reading. And if anything, if these weren't Man United players, I think we might be holding off a little bit and getting them in. The problem is there's a lot of Man United fans out there, so they rise quickly in price. Like I said, Martial and Rashford have already gone up 0.2 million. So if you're like me and you've not wildcarded, it's going to cost a lot to bring them in. So let's look at the stats. Best defender, so chances created, they've basically, Shaw and Maguire have created 2 chances each, and Wan-Bissaka only 1. Again, only 2 game weeks, but pretty low in terms of defender potential there, and they've had no shots in the box between them. So when you look at underlying stats, it's pretty difficult to pick between them. Obviously, Wan-Bissaka and Maguire are quite popular because they're the new boys to the team, and we've seen how good Wan-Bissaka's been for bonus points, so I definitely wouldn't rule that out. I still think he's my favourite, but I wouldn't really begrudge going for the other two. If I was going to pick one, I'd probably pay the 0.1 million, get Wan-Bissaka. Hopefully he can kind of up his attacking potential, but if not, he's going to get bonus points when we got clean sheets. And one thing to say is obviously the fixtures do get better now for Man United. So if I was wildcarding, I probably would have a defender. In terms of attacker, Martial versus Rashford. I still think I'm siding with Martial just about. He's playing up front in that number 9 position. Yes, he does drift out wide sometimes and Rashford comes inside, but ultimately he is playing that number 9, less defensive work. And also he's cheaper. He's $1 million cheaper. He gets an extra point for the goal. The good thing about Rashford is Pogba's just missed a penalty. There's every chance that Rashford's now the number 1 penalty taker. Maybe Martial will get a go, and before I get any Man United players in, I'm really hoping they get another penalty with all 3 on the pitch, that Rashford or Pogba wins it and Martial takes it, and then we might have a clearer idea of who's definitely on penalties, but I think that's going to be a pretty muddy water for now. So I still prefer Martial. In terms of the double up, you could do that. Like I said, the fixtures are going to get better, so you'd expect the underlying stats to improve. And I think if Martial's already got 2 goals against Wolves and Chelsea, he can definitely do that against weaker teams. But if you look at shots in the box, Rashford's had 2 in 2 games. Martial's had 3. So to give that some context, Pukki and Sterling have had 10 each. So they've got 5 times as many shots in the box as Rashford. Firmino's had 6. Richarlison's had 5. People will be looking at selling him if they start with him. And Morpay at Brighton has had 3. So he's had the same amount as Martial, but has only played 49 minutes, only made sub-appearance. So the stats aren't great, but they have played 2 quite strong teams. So maybe they've been a little bit lucky to get 2 goals from the amount of shots they've had. And obviously Rashford's on penalties. But they've got better fixtures coming up. So I can see why people are jumping on, and I would be too. Triple up I'm not quite sure about, but double up with 1 defender and Martial, or 1 defender plus Rashford definitely looks good. I can see why people are jumping on them now. So a lot of people are wildcarding this week. Like I said, I haven't. I'm not going to talk too much about whether that was a good or a bad idea, because it's Friday. By the time this video goes out, it's only going to be like 6 or 7 hours till the deadline. And at that point, you're probably not still choosing whether to wildcard or not. And also, I have draft videos and stuff out on that. But one of the reasons I've not yet done it, as well as maybe being a little bit indecisive, but I don't quite know if I want to jump off Liverpool defenders yet. Man United, yes, I really want them. They're still good prices, even though they've risen in price. And there's a few players that I'm kind of on the lookout for that I want to see more from. So, Ceballos at Arsenal, I watched the video on Twitter. Hopefully, I've got that right. Ceballos. That seems to be how you pronounce that name. He obviously looked really good in the game against Burnley. 3 chances created, got 2 assists from that. You could say that he was a little bit lucky. No shots in the box yet. So we're still yet to see just how attacking he's going to be. He's already risen in price. He started off at a really good 5.5, but he has risen. But the next 2 fixtures are Liverpool and Spurs, so they're not exactly easy. So I'm going to watch to see where he plays in those games, how he plays, and then maybe get him in kind of in game week 5, 6 or whatever it might be. So I'm definitely on the lookout for him, but I'm not in a rush to get him. Keane and Morpay, I think the striker situation is interesting right now, because a lot of people still not going for 3 strikers up front, but I feel like there's enough quality there that eventually we're going to want to do that, and maybe on a wild card would be a good time to do it. So we've got Pukki looking good, Barnes looks good, we've got Rashford less than 9 million. We've not seen Vardy score. As soon as he does, that could be another bandwagon. And then we've got Morpay at Brighton. Like I've just said, he's got the same amount of shots in the box as Martial, but he's only played 49 minutes. And historically, he has kind of been a striker that likes to shoot a lot, which is obviously good for getting goals. It's just whether or not he can displace Murray up front. And him and Trossard obviously both look good as well. So I've got my eye on a couple of Brighton assets, would you believe it? And then Moise Kean at Everton, I'm not sure how much longer they're going to go with Calvert-Lewin. He's just not looked very good. And I know he's got a bit of potential about him, but I just don't think he's the long-term solution for Everton. So Kean is going to come in and start regularly before long, you would imagine. Obviously, there's a lot of hype around him still, but we're not quite sure how he's going to perform. So I want to see him for a few more games as well. And then the big dog, Heung-min Son, he's in at 9.5 million, so he's quite expensive. And the problem is he's very close to the price of De Bruyne, who looks brilliant again. And Man City have really good fixtures. So most of us have probably gone for De Bruyne, but I'm on the lookout for how I can fit him, one of Mane and Salah, as well as Sterling and Son in my midfield on a wild card potentially by properly dropping the defence down. And we've seen how good he can be. He's 1.5 million less than Kane. I think a lot of people will say if he plays good enough minutes, that he could easily match Kane, if not outscore him. So the reason I'm on the lookout for him is because I'm not quite sure he's going to start in game week 3. They've got so many options right now. I kind of want to see how that what happens with Spurs in midfield. Will Eriksen leave? If he doesn't, there's only a few kind of spots in that midfield for the likes of Ali, Son, Lucas Moura, Lamela. There's Ndombele will obviously play most games as well, but there's Lo Celso as well. So there's a lot of players in that Spurs midfield. So I'm on the lookout for quite a few players. This is really why I've not wildcarded. There's still a few players that I want to see. And obviously want to see how Liverpool defenders get on before I start dropping both of them. So a few players to be looking out for this weekend and in the next couple of game weeks before you make any more major decisions. Let's talk about captaincy this week. There's a lot of options. I think if you go, not to sit on the fence too much, but I think if you go for any of these three, you should be on to a winner, at least on paper. So Kane's got Newcastle at home. Newcastle have looked awful. A lot of people talking about Kane's record versus Newcastle. And to be fair, a lot of people, myself included, will be talking about Sterling's record against Bournemouth, how good it is, and Salah's versus Arsenal and how good that is too. So maybe we should be talking about how poor Kane is versus Newcastle. But to be honest, I don't tend to think of records too much in terms of what's happening this season. Obviously, a lot changes season to season. So the fact that Pukki's just scored a hat-trick against Newcastle, don't see any reason why Spurs won't score a lot of goals past them too. Won't necessarily be a Kane hat-trick, but you think that he would be involved. So if you've got Harry Kane, definitely a good decision. Is he a better option than Sterling or Salah versus Arsenal? I'm not quite sure about that. I think if Sterling was at home, then I think that would be an absolute no-brainer. I suppose away is a little bit tougher, but I don't see how Bournemouth are going to cope with Man City. The fact that Man City went to Spurs or played against Spurs and had something like 30 goal attempts against them was absolutely insane. They treated them like they were just like a bottom of the league kind of club. And obviously they did score 2 goals, Spurs, but I think they consider themselves a little bit lucky that happened. So for me, I've got Sterling. I don't have Kane, so obviously I can't choose him anyway. But I've got Sterling. I am more than happy to captain him. I am honestly not worried about not owning Kane at all. I know he could hurt me, but you can't have everyone. So Sterling is the number one for me. I do like Salah's record versus Arsenal, and obviously he is at home. We've seen how good Mane's record is as well. So I think if you're going for a Liverpool player, they look really good. And I've seen a few people point out that maybe Salah will try and step it up because Mane's just scored and done really well in the last game against Southampton. So now he's going to want to prove that he's still got it. And maybe that's the case, but I don't know how often that actually works out in a game. But I honestly think all three are good. If I had to rank them, if you made me absolutely rank them to not sit on the fence, I would say Sterling number 1, Kane number 2, and then Mane and Salah number 3. But I'll be honest, next week I'll be sat here and I would have probably got that completely wrong because I think it is super close. And while I don't like captaining top 6 players against the top 6, I think Arsenal just defensively are not great. And Salah and Mane can absolutely do the business. So it's almost a time to just take a dartboard, put a blindfold on, and just throw a dart and pick whichever one it lands on. But for me, I'll go Sterling, Kane, Salah. I'm going to put my neck on the line, but it could be close for all of them. So that's it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Next week I will try and get the videos out a little bit earlier, like I did the previous week. Obviously this week was just a bit busier. Plus I had that bonus video as well, so things got a bit messed up. But hopefully, if you do get to watch this before the Game Week 3 deadline, hopefully it's useful for you. Like I said, I'll be streaming at 6 o'clock for deadline stream that I've got just after 7, so we can react to the team sheets. Hopefully see Lucas Dean on there. And then next week I've got the usual content. So if you've not already subscribed, make sure you do. Pushing for 50,000 subscribers would be absolutely amazing. And obviously that will let you know when there's more content coming, more streams and stuff like that. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like and leave a comment down below of any questions or counterpoints you want to make. Otherwise, I will see you tonight or on the next video. Cheers all.